My wife invited her ex-husband over and they made fun of me. To get even, I invited her ex to our next dinner party, but this time, my special guest silenced them both the moment she walked in. Little did they know, the game had only just begun. It was a typical Thursday evening. I came home from the construction company and immediately smelled something unusual. Usually at this hour, my wife Elena would be watching TV on the sofa, not busy in the kitchen. We had been married for 3 years and she hardly ever cooked, let alone prepared such an elaborate dinner. You were home. Elena poked her head out of the kitchen, a radiant smile on her face that I hadn't seen in a long time. She was wearing the scarlet red dress I had given her last Christmas, which she had never worn. Claiming it was too flashy. Today, she not only wore it, but had also meticulously done her makeup and put on the silver necklace we bought for our wedding anniversary. What's going on? I asked, untying my tie. Is today a special occasion? Oh, nothing much, she replied casually. I just invited an old friend for dinner. He just returned to Seville from Madrid. I thought you'd like him. I raised an eyebrow. In our marriage, Elena had never invited any old friends over for dinner, especially without notifying me in advance. What old friend? I asked, a hint of alarm in my voice. Elena looked a bit uncomfortable, but quickly regained her smile. It's Javier, my ex-husband. He's been an art dealer in Madrid for a few years and is now back in Seville to open his own gallery. We reconnected by chance on Instagram. So, I thought, why not invite him to meet you, Javier? The ex-husband I only knew from Elena's occasional mentions. The man who was supposedly immature, irresponsible, and impossible to communicate with, which led to the failure of her first marriage. And now she suddenly invited him to our home for dinner. Why didn't you tell me beforehand? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. It was a last-minute decision, darling. Besides, it's just dinner. She turned back to the kitchen, adding over her shoulder, he'll be here at 7. You should go change your shirt. I looked at my watch. 45 minutes. Enough time for me to calm down and think about this sudden arrangement. I went into the bathroom, washed my face, and tried to clear my head. Elena and Javier had divorced 5 years ago before she met me. She had never expressed any desire to stay in touch with him, let alone invite him to our house. Coming out of the bathroom, I noticed Elena fixing her hair in front of the mirror, her eyes sparkling with a light I had never seen before. I stood by and watched her, recalling the changes in her behavior over the past few weeks. Frequent overtime, constantly ringing phone notifications, and her always turning away from me to reply to messages. The details I had ignored suddenly became clear. Are you sure it's just old friends catching up? I couldn't help but ask. Elena turned around, a hint of annoyance flashing across her face. Oh my God, don't be like a suspicious teenager. Javier is just an old friend and I want you to meet. Is there a problem with that? I shook my head, deciding to remain silent for now and observe how things unfolded. The doorbell rang promptly. I heard Elena hurrying to open the door, followed by her excited voice. Javier, you're here. I walked out of the bedroom and saw a tall man standing in the hallway. He wore a well-tailored dark blue suit, a visibly expensive Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, and his hair was impeccably groomed. He was much more polished than I had imagined. Ah, you must be Diego. He extended his hand with a perfect smile. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. His handshake was firm and confident, his eyes looking straight into mine as if evaluating something. I noticed Elena standing by, her eyes shining as she looked at him, a smile on her lips that I rarely saw. Welcome, I responded concisely. Elena mentioned, you're an art dealer. Yes. Javier nodded slightly, specializing in contemporary Spanish artists. Seville's art scene is becoming increasingly vibrant, making it an ideal place to redevelop my business. As he spoke, his gaze kept drifting towards Elena, and she continuously ran her fingers through her hair, a habit she had when nervous or excited. I felt a surge of discomfort at the unspoken communication between them. Dinner began, and the atmosphere was even more awkward than I had anticipated. Elena and Javier talked incessantly about their shared past, the places they had been, the people they knew, and inside jokes only they understood. Remember that little restaurant in Barcelona? Javier asked Elena, laughing. The waiter thought we were celebrities and insisted on taking a picture with us. Elena burst into laughter, and then the next day you actually saw that photo in the local newspaper. Oh my god, that was hilarious. I sat there feeling like an unwelcome audience member forced to watch a memory show that wasn't mine. Every time I tried to join the conversation, the topic immediately shifted back to past events I couldn't participate in. My construction company recently handled the restoration of 3 historic buildings in downtown Seville. I tried to interject. I also have some knowledge of architectural art. Javier shrugged dismissively. Architecture, of course. A very practical art form. He turned to Elena, a provocative glint in his eyes. Elena used to be the best sales consultant in my gallery. She has a natural eye for art. It's a pity she's now wasting her talent at that boring real estate company. My company isn't boring, I calmly responded. We are the largest commercial real estate developer in Seville. Elena suddenly placed her hand on Javier's arm, interrupting our conversation. I think we're making my husband jealous, she said with a laugh, her eyes directly on Javier. He's not used to me having such charming friends. Both of them laughed at the same time, as if it was some private joke between them. A chilling sensation crept up my spine. This wasn't just playful banter between old friends. It was open mockery. I smiled, taking in their taunts, already sketching out a blueprint of my own. I suppose I'm right, Javier finally said, his tone fighting tolerance. Not everyone needs to appreciate the same things. That's why some marriages last a lifetime, while others, well, aren't so lucky. His words carried a double meaning. His gaze flickering between Elena and me, a smirk playing on his lips. Elena looked both nervous and excited, her fingers constantly swirling the wine glass. I put down my cutlery, slowly wiped my mouth with a napkin, and then stood up. Diego, Elena looked at me quizzically. Where are you going? I'm a bit tired, I said calmly. You to carry on. I left the dining table, went upstairs, entered the bedroom, and gently closed the door. In the darkness, I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. At that moment, I knew something was wrong with my marriage, and it was likely more serious than I had imagined, but I wasn't one to make a scene. I was a planner and architect. I knew how to build things from the ground up. Now, I needed to gather evidence, learn the truth, and then formulate a perfect plan for retaliation. The laughter coming from downstairs confirmed my suspicions. They didn't even need to hide it anymore, thinking I had retreated from the battle. I took out my phone, turned on the recording function, placed it on the bedside table, and then tiptoed to the top of the stairs. That's so funny, I heard Elena say. Did you see his face? Exactly as you said. Javier's voice was full of mockery. Your architect husband can't read people at all, can he? He trusts me too much, Elena chuckled. Sometimes I even find it a bit boring. Then don't be bored. Javier's voice deepened with a clear insinuation. We have more interesting things to do. Then there was a silence followed by a faint moan from Elena. I gripped the stair railing, fighting the urge to rush down. No, this was not the time. I needed a more perfect plan, one that would utterly shatter them. I quietly returned to the bedroom, picked up my phone, and stopped the recording. This was just the beginning, but it was enough to confirm my suspicions were correct. I needed more evidence, more detailed evidence. The next morning, Elena acted as if nothing awkward had happened last night. Why did you suddenly go upstairs last night? She asked while doing her makeup. Javier thought you were angry. Just a bit of a headache, I lied. He seems like an interesting person. Elena visibly relaxed. Yes, he's always been charming. He's changed a lot since we broke up, become more mature. She paused, seemingly hesitant to continue. He said he wants me to come see his new gallery space to get some advice. You don't mind, do you? Of course not, I said with a smile. When? This afternoon. She looked a bit surprised, perhaps not expecting me to agree so easily. Okay, have fun. I kissed her forehead and turned to leave. I didn't go to work. Instead, I called my assistant, telling her I had a personal matter to attend to, and then contacted my college friend, Andreas. Andreas was an IT security expert working for a cybersecurity company in Barcelona. I need your help, old friend. I got straight to the point. Can you help me recover some deleted text messages from your phone? Andreas asked. From my wife's phone backup. We share an iCloud account. There was a moment of silence on the other end. That sounds a bit private. Andreas. I think she's cheating on me. I whispered my biggest fear. Another silence. "Send me the backup file," he finally said. "I'll see what I can do." "Do you think this is the right thing to do?" Andreas asked, concerned in his voice, crying into her privacy. "Under normal circumstances, I would never do this," I sighed. "But last night, you should have seen them. They weren't even hiding it." "All right, but be careful," Andreas warned. "If you find anything, don't do anything rash. Think calmly. Make a plan." "That's exactly my intention," I replied, simultaneously starting to look up how to access iCloud backups. After hanging up, I spent almost an hour on my computer setting up access to our shared cloud storage. I found a backup file from a few weeks ago and sent it to Andreas. Next, I needed to confirm their actions with my own eyes. In the afternoon, I drove near Elena's real estate office. I parked at a coffee shop across the street, ordered a coffee, and waited quietly. As expected, at 3 o'clock, Elena walked out of the company building, but instead of heading to the bus stop as usual, she stood by the roadside looking around. A few minutes later, a black Mercedes pulled up in front of her and Javier leaned out of the driver's seat. Elena quickly got in and they drove off. I quietly followed, keeping a safe distance. They didn't go to any gallery space. Instead, they drove directly to a luxurious hotel on the outskirts of the city. I parked in the parking lot opposite the hotel and photographed them intimately walking into the hotel. 2 hours later, they left looking satisfied and relaxed. Elena's hair slightly disheveled and Javier's tie missing. I watched them each leave, rage boiling in my chest. But I forced myself to stay calm and consider every next step. Back home, I opened my computer and started investigating everything about Javier Moreno. Through LinkedIn and Facebook, I found that he was indeed an art dealer, 36 years old, and had just returned to Seville from Madrid. But what surprised me most was that his Facebook status showed married and photos showed his wife Marbel Sanchez, a successful photographer, was pregnant with their first child. Marbel's Instagram account was public, full of photos of her growing belly and preparations for their upcoming baby. According to her post, she was 7 months pregnant, and Javier was clearly an excited, expectant father, often tagged in photos of furniture purchases for the nursery. I continued to dig deeper, finding Marbel's professional photography website and contact information. She was a renowned advertising photographer whose work had appeared in several international magazines. Her page featured a photo of her and Javier both looking very happy with the caption, "Awaiting our little angel." I felt a wave of nausea. Not only had Elena betrayed me, but Javier had also betrayed his pregnant wife. This deception was even more despicable than I had imagined. Just as I was immersed in these discoveries, my phone rang. Was Andreas. "I've recovered some data," he said, his voice serious. "You better sit down." He sent me an encrypted file containing all text message records between Elena and Javier from the past 3 months. From polite greetings in January to flirting in February to explicit messages and secret date plans in the last month. Most shockingly, they had planned last night's dinner just to make fun of me and test my reaction. "He has no idea. It's hilarious," Elena wrote in one message. "He trusts me so much I can make him believe anything." "I can't wait to see his face," Javier replied, "especially when you say he's jealous." There was more, even more explicit content, including their lunch break dates at the office, their gatherings at our house when I was away on business, and even discussions about their future plans. Elena considering divorcing me and getting back together with Javier. "But you're already married and your wife is pregnant," she wrote in one message. "It's complicated," Javier replied, "but I'll handle it. My marriage to Marbel is already dead. She's too focused on work and the baby." My hand gripped the phone tightly, anger almost suffocating me. But I forced myself to calm down. I needed more evidence, a more comprehensive plan. I noticed Javier repeatedly mentioned Marbel traveling to Barcelona for an important client shoot, returning over the weekend. This gave me an idea. I found Marbel's professional website and sent her an email. "Dear Miss Sanchez, I have some information about your husband that I believe you should know. This is not a prank or slander, but concerns your future and that of your unborn child. If you are willing to learn more, please contact me. Diego Hernandez." I included my phone number, but no specific evidence. I wasn't sure if she would reply or if she would simply forward the email to Javier, but it was a risk worth taking. The next few hours were a long wait. I checked my phone and email countless times, but received no reply. Perhaps Marbel thought it was a prank. Perhaps she didn't want to face the possible truth. Just as I was considering giving up on this route, my phone rang and an unfamiliar number appeared on the screen. "Is this Diego?" A female voice asked, sounding both wary and tired. "Yes. Is this Marbel?" "It's me. About your email, about my husband. What do you want to tell me?" Her voice was slightly trembling, but her determination was evident. "Marbel." I took a deep breath. "I know this is hard to believe, but Javier is having an affair with my wife, Elena. I have proof." There was a long silence on the other end. Then I heard a suppressed sob. "I knew something was wrong," she finally said, her voice trembling. "He's been acting strange lately, always using overtime as an excuse, extra cautious with his phone. But I thought it was just because he was stressed, preparing to open a new gallery." "I'm so sorry," I said sincerely. "I only found out yesterday, too." "What proof do you have?" she suddenly asked, her voice regaining some firmness. "Text message, records, photos. I personally saw them enter Cologne together this afternoon. That five-star hotel near Alamo Park." "Exactly." Another silence. "I want to see you," she finally said, "to see the evidence in person." We agreed to meet the next day at a quiet coffee shop. As I walked into the cafe, I immediately recognized Marbel sitting in the corner. Despite being 7 months pregnant, she still had a photographer's keen eye, immediately seeing through my disguise. "You don't look like an angry husband at all," she commented, "more like someone planning revenge." I smiled slightly and sat opposite her both. "Before I see any evidence," she looked straight into my eyes. "Tell me why you're doing this. Why not just confront your wife directly?" "Because it's not just about her betrayal," I explained. "It's about their attitude. They mocked me in my own home, treating my trust as a joke. I want them to understand what that feels like." Marbel nodded, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "All right, let's see what you have." I showed her all the evidence, text message screenshots, hotel photos, even a video I secretly took of them entering the hotel together. I also played the snippets of conversation I recorded at home. Although the sound was muffled, it was clear enough to hear their mockery. Marbel looked at the evidence, her expression shifting from shock to anger and finally to determination. She wiped away tears from the corners of her eyes and took several deep breaths, trying to calm herself. "He told me he loved this baby," she whispered, her hand gently stroking her abdomen. "He said he couldn't wait to be a father. And all this time, I'm sorry you have to go through this," I said sincerely, "especially at this time." She looked up, the vulnerability in her eyes replaced by resolve. "So," she closed my laptop. "What are we going to do?" I looked at her slightly surprised. "We, of course," she said calmly, her hand gently on her swollen belly. "They humiliated you together and betrayed me and our child. Do you think I'll just forgive him?" "What do you have in mind?" I asked, impressed by her firmness. "I think your approach is right," she mused. "Let them taste public humiliation. I want to see Javier's face when he realizes his lies have been exposed. I'm considering inviting him back for dinner," I explained. "Let them think I'm completely unaware. And then I show up." Marbel finished, a cold glint in her eyes. "With all the evidence." "And so we began to formulate a plan to make the two deceivers pay. We decided to act on Friday evening. This gave us 2 days to prepare everything. Marbel would tell Javier she was going to Barcelona for a client shoot, but in reality, she would stay in Seville preparing for our surprise. "I'll organize all the evidence," she said. "Not just what you provided, but also what I've collected myself. He won't have any room for excuses." "What else have you collected?" I asked curiously. "Credit card statements." She smiled slightly. "Javier always forgets we have a shared account. A €600 jewelry purchase, claiming it was for his mother's birthday. But his mother's birthday is in February, and this purchase was in April, and a hotel charge from 2 weeks ago, which he said was for an art workshop. But I checked. There were no workshops at that hotel that day." I had to admire her meticulousness and courage. "You suspected him for a while, didn't you?" "A photographer's job is to observe details," she shrugged. "I just kept refusing to believe what I saw." The next evening, When Elena came home, I presented my suggestion. "We should invite Javier over for dinner again," I said casually. "I feel our last conversation was cut short. I'd like to learn more about his art business." A flicker of delight crossed Elena's eyes. She seemed pleased with my cooperation. "Really? You want to see him again?" "Why not?" I shrug. "He seems like an interesting person. Besides, he's your friend and I should try to get along with him, too." Elena immediately pulled out her phone to send a message and a few minutes later excitedly told me Javier was free this Friday. "I'll prepare an even more special dinner," she announced. "I look forward to it," I smiled, already counting down the hours in my heart. Over the next few days, Marbel and I refined our plan, all while carefully avoiding any suspicion. I contacted a lawyer to ensure all legal procedures were in place. On Thursday afternoon, I bought 2 small recording devices at an electronics store. Spanish law allows participants in a conversation to record it with unilateral knowledge as evidence. I decided to record all conversations at Friday's dinner to provide more evidence for potential legal proceedings. The same day, Marbel texted me confirming she had prepared all the evidence and consulted with her lawyer. Her lawyer believed that given her pregnancy and Javier's infidelity, she would be in a very strong position in divorce and custody proceedings. "Are you sure you want to do this?" I asked in my reply. "Won't this affect the child?" "This child needs honesty and respect," she replied. "Not a family built on lies. I'd rather she know the truth from a young age than live in false happiness." I admired her courage and determination throughout this entire mess. She had shown extraordinary strength. Friday arrived quickly. Elena was even more meticulously dressed than last time, wearing a new dress I had never seen, clearly bought for Javier. The entire house was filled with fresh flowers, and the dining table was set with our best china and crystal glasses from our wedding. "Don't disappoint me," she warned me before Javier arrived. "Be friendly." I smiled and agreed, calculating the time in my mind. Marbel should be on her way now. We agreed she would arrive 30 minutes after dinner started, giving me enough time to steer the conversation in the direction we wanted. Javier arrived promptly, this time bringing an expensive bottle of red wine and a bouquet of roses for Elena, of course. He seemed even more confident than last time, as if he had already concluded that I was an easily deceived fool. "Diego," he enthusiastically hugged me as if we were old friends. "I'm so glad you invited me again." I resisted the urge to push him away, returning a fake smile. Of course, it's always good to get to know Elena's friends better. Dinner began just like last time, filled with unspoken glances and accidental touches between them. But this time, I decided to control the direction of the conversation. "So, Javier," I slowly took a sip of red wine. "How long have you been married?" The dining table instantly fell silent. Elena's face turned pale and Javier froze, his wine glass suspended in midair. "What?" he finally asked, his voice an octave higher than usual. "Your marriage," I calmly repeated. "I see you're wearing a wedding ring." "Oh," that he chuckled awkwardly, glancing quickly at Elena. "Yes, I am married, but it's complicated." Just then, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it." I stood up. It might be the pizza delivery. I walked to the door, took a deep breath, and opened it. Marbel stood there elegant in her maternity dress, her swollen belly unmistakable. She looked both beautiful and resolute. "Ready?" I whispered. She nodded, determination shining in her eyes. I guided her into the living room directly towards the dining table. The moment Javier saw Marbel, his face instantly turned ashen. His wine glass slipped from his hand and crashed to the floor, spilling red wine on our carpet. Elena was no better. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. "Everyone," I said calmly, "I'd like to introduce Marbel Sanchez, Javier's wife, and they are expecting their first child." Javier finally found his voice. "What are you doing here?" "I'd like to ask you the same question, dear husband," Marbel responded calmly. "You told me you had an important artist meeting tonight." Elena finally recovered from her shock and turned to Javier. "You're married and a child." Her voice was filled with disbelief. "You told me you were single." "He lied to both of you," I interjected, pulling out my phone from my pocket. "Just like you lied to me, dear wife." I opened my phone and began reading out Elena and Javier's text messages. With each message I read, Elena's face grew paler. When I read the messages, where they planned how to mock me at dinner, Marbel's eyes sparkled with anger. This is an invasion of privacy. Javier protested, trying to snatch my phone. Really? That's what you're focused on? Marbel sneered. Not how you betrayed your pregnant wife. She took out her own phone and showed several photos. Javier and Elena entering the hotel and the hotel expenses displayed on the credit card statement. You said this was a meeting with an art supplier, she said sarcastically. I didn't know art deals now take place in 5-star hotel suites. Marbel, darling, it's not what you think. Javier tried to explain, but every word sounded hollow. Oh really? I interjected. Then how do you explain the video I took on Tuesday afternoon following you both to the hotel? Elena turned to me, her eyes filled with fear. You followed us. I didn't need to follow you for long, I said coldly. You weren't careful enough to confident, thinking I was an easily fooled idiot. The living room fell into silence, only the ticking of the wall clock echoing in the air. Finally, Elena spoke, her voice trembling. Diego, we can talk. This was just a mistake. We developed some feelings, but it doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. My voice rose for the first time. You betrayed me, mocked me with him in our home, using our marriage as your joke, and that doesn't mean anything. You don't understand, Elena said eagerly, tears starting to stream down her face. Javier made me feel understood, appreciated. And you, Javier, Marbel turned to her husband. I'm carrying your child, decorating the nursery alone, going to prenatal appointments alone. And where are you? Sleeping with your ex-wife. Is this your commitment to our child? Javier looked defeated, his shoulders slumped. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, I said calmly, taking a folder from my briefcase. I've already contacted a lawyer. Tomorrow morning, I will officially file for divorce. All the evidence, text messages, photos, recordings, is already prepared. Recordings? Elena asked in horror. I pointed to the small recording pen in my shirt pocket, including tonight's conversation. Spanish law allows such recordings as evidence. You can't do this, Elena shrieked. We can fix this. We can go to marriage counseling. It's too late, I said calmly, feeling a strange sense of peace. I've had the lawyer prepare a property settlement agreement. The house will be sold and the proceeds divided equally. No alimony, a clean break. I turned to Marbel, who nodded and then looked at Javier. As for you, she said coldly, I'm leaving. You can choose to go home tonight to get your things or stay here. But we are over. My lawyer will contact you on Monday. Don't expect to see our child easily. Javier desperately stood up trying to grab Marbel's hand. Please, we can talk. For the child. For the child. Marbel glared at him. It is precisely for the child that I cannot allow her father to be such a dishonest, unfaithful person. Do you think these are the values she should learn? Javier hung his head, cast one last glance at Elena, and then silently left. Only I, Elena, and Marbel remained in the room. Elena continued to sob while Marbel calmly looked at me with understanding and a shared resolve in her eyes. I think I should go too, Marbel said. Thank you, Diego. If it weren't for you, I might still be in the dark, living a life based on lies. I walked her to the door. I should thank you too, I said. Your courage gave me strength. She smiled faintly, then left. When I returned to the living room, Elena had stopped crying, just staring blankly ahead. Diego, she said softly, can't we really salvage this? What you sought wasn't love, Elena, I said calmly, but convenience. You wanted Javier's excitement and my stability, treating me as a fallback. But I am no one's fallback. I picked up the suitcase I had already prepared and informed Elena that I would be staying at a hotel tonight, and from now on, everything would be handled by the lawyers. Goodbye, Elena, I said without looking back. I hope you find what you truly want. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. On Monday morning, my lawyer filed for divorce, and Elena received the notification at her office. She tried to contact me multiple times, but I did not respond. On Tuesday, I learned from Marbel that Javier had moved out of their apartment. Her lawyer was confident that with the evidence, she would be in a very strong position in the divorce and custody proceedings. He tried to fight for joint custody, Marbel told me over the phone, but my lawyer presented the evidence to the judge, proving his infidelity and lies during my pregnancy. The judge seemed inclined to grant me primary custody, allowing Javier supervised visits only. On Wednesday, Elena sent me a text message via a friend's phone, begging for a second chance. I deleted the message directly. On Thursday, the lawyer informed me that Elena had agreed to all my terms, a clean division of property, no further entanglement. She seemed to want to end everything as quickly as possible, perhaps out of shame or just to escape this failed marriage. She mentioned she's looking for job opportunities in Barcelona. The lawyer told me, since she wants a fresh start. I nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief. Good, I hope all the paperwork can be completed soon. 2 weeks later, our divorce was finalized faster than I had anticipated. Spain's no-fault divorce system proved remarkably efficient in this situation. I sold the apartment we jointly owned and bought a smaller, more suitable new place for myself. On moving day, I packed all items related to Elena and sent them to her new address, leaving nothing behind that would stir memories. A month later, while handling the last bits of paperwork at the courthouse, I happened to run into Marbel. She looked calm and determined, still radiant despite being close to her due date. "Hello, Diego," she smiled. "Looks like we're both here to end some things." "Yes," I nodded. "Is everything all right?" "Very good." She stroked her abdomen. "I'm due in 2 weeks. Javier tried to see me at the last prenatal checkup, but he was stopped by hospital security. The court only granted him supervised visitation. We sat down at a cafe outside the courthouse and chatted for a while. Marbel told me she had accepted an invitation for a photography project in Paris and planned to move there to start a new life after the baby was born. I in turn shared that I had recently joined a bowling club and made some new friends. "You know," she said, sipping her lemonade, "I never believed revenge could bring satisfaction, but now I have to admit, seeing them pay for their actions does bring a strange sense of peace. It's not just revenge," I looked at her. "It's the consequences they deserved." So, she raised her glass to truth and new beginnings. "To courage and dignity," I responded. 2 months later, I received an email from Marbel with a photo attached. She was holding a beautiful newborn baby girl with the Eiffel Tower in the background. "Thank you for helping me reclaim my self-respect and courage. Paris is beautiful and new life is wonderful. I hope the same for you." I smiled and replied, "Congratulations, Marbel. New life is indeed wonderful." 6 months later, my construction company landed an important project, designing exhibition spaces for a newly opened photography art center in Paris. When I arrived in Paris, Marbel invited me to her home for dinner. Her daughter was already 6 months old with bright eyes and a lovely smile. We had dinner and talked about our new lives with no bitterness, only peace and hope. "How is Javier doing?" I asked after dinner. "He moved back to Madrid," Marbel shrugged. "He visits his daughter once a month, always bringing expensive gifts, but never truly gets to know her. Sometimes I think he does it just to ease his own guilt." Elena also moved to Barcelona, I told her, working at a real estate company. "We haven't been in touch since." I raised a glass with Marbel without a hint of nostalgia for the past. That night, I not only exposed lies, but also reclaimed myself. Elena and Javier thought they could toy with my trust, but they didn't know. They only ignited a fire within me. They lost everything while I moved towards a new light. That wasn't revenge. It was self-salvation, a defense of dignity. I will never forgive their betrayal, but I will be grateful for the experience as it made me stronger and clearer-minded. New life had just begun. No matter what, remember, respect is the foundation of any relationship. When it disappears, everything crumbles. But when you guard your dignity, you win the most important battle. If you enjoyed this brutal plot twist, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more crazy real-life stories. See you in the next one.